Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monthly Reset podcast. I'm Bobby Sherrill. I'm here with Justin Townsend.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Okay, it's been a long week.
We are sitting down in these exact chairs doing this exact thing all of the time. So it's a little bit odd to be like acting like this is something new but special. But we are doing a podcast, which we haven't done in a little bit. We haven't done since our Best of the Generation podcasts that we did.
Yeah.
Which were a lot of fun. You can find those right now. But on this show, we usually don't go into too many topical things because we only do it monthly. But just so happens that around the time we're supposed to record a podcast, we had some big news in the topical sense from Xbox, which did their Xbox Games Showcase just yesterday when we're streaming this. So we're gonna go in depth about that, talk about the stuff that we liked, that we didn't like, and what we think they could do better, and all that kind of stuff. We'll also have some games to talk about we've been playing. Depending on how long we go on the Xbox thing, we may dive into Last of Us Part 2 because we both beat that game. One of the only games I think we've actually really played on our own that hasn't been recorded in a video in some way. But we'll get to that if we get to that. Mark, how is everybody sounding? Justin, talk a little bit for me.
Hello, my friends. It is good to be here. Mark, just let me know how everything sounds, buddy.
I think we should be good. Hey, Cody. Thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much. Levels are great. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Let's do this. So Justin, where do you want to jump in? Do we want to talk about the other Xbox drama that you've been having in your life?
Oh, sure. We could talk about that.
Okay.
So I haven't showed this on stream. So Jora.
You did show your Jora's controller.
I showed that on a stream.
Yeah.
But since we're podcasting, I'll show it here for people maybe who haven't been watching. Ordered Jora a controller that he designed himself. It looks like so. It is red, black, blue, orange, teal. It's a monstrosity. It says very small letters Ninja J because that's his YouTube name.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this thing and I was like, you know what? This is really nice. Like, it's a way nicer design than I thought. So Bobby and I were like, we should get our own controllers. We should get some monthly reset controllers. And so we went ahead to go do that, and we were trying to order it at the same time. We had come up with a design together that we both liked, and it was going to be the colors of our logo and whatnot. And it's going to say monthly reset at the bottom. Hey, Omegs. And I went to order mine, and Bobby went to order his at the exact same time, and the website was not working.
True.
So Bobby was like, I'll just do this later. And I was like, I've got a couple of minutes to kill. Let me just contact chat here and see if they could order, like if they could, help us push this through, like what's going on. Who knows? Maybe they give us a discount. Like, hey, come back tomorrow. Here's $5 off. So instead, chat was like, the lady that I spoke to in chat was like, I'm just going to order it for you. And she's like, you wanted this color, right? And I was like, yeah, that's what saved in my cart. And so when I looked at my orders later, I could only see the color that I ordered, none of the other things.
Right, yes.
So at like 1 a.m, I spent 2 hours on hold with multiple different people trying to just confirm my order. And it was confirmed. That order came today and it looks good, but it didn't come with the engraving that I paid for.
Yeah.
So I spent 3 hours on the phone today. I was transferred to 9 different people. That's not an exaggeration. This is transferred to 9 different human beings, all trying to pass me off back and forth, saying it was the other department's problem. So after 3 hours on the phone, I have apparently decided I'm just eating the $10 and not getting the engraving that we wanted. But the controller looks like so. It's like black at the top and very light blue at the bottom, and it's kind of hard to see this, but it's got yellow and it's the colors of our stream.
Yeah.
So,
thanks for the biddies, Megs.
Thank you, Megs.
Cody says it sounds like a real Karen story.
Yeah, well, it was funny because it was not funny at all, but the problem was that you would go to Microsoft support and be like, hey, look, I bought something and I didn't get what I ordered. And they're like, well, it's an Xbox custom controller. You have to speak to the people at Xbox. And the people at Xbox be like, well, that's great that we messed up, but we can't offer you any type of refund. You have to go through Microsoft's customer service to get that. So I was handed off back and forth through 9 different people before I nearly lost my mind.
Yeah.
And then I had a resolution. Finally, somebody was like, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an email address and you're going to email us pictures of the controller and you're going to send the controller back to us. And maybe we'll be able to fix it and send it back to you. So I was like, all right, I took the pictures. I'm like, where do I send these? And they're like, well, what's your email address? The best one to reach you at. And so I gave them it. And they're like, we'll send you the email address and all this in a confirmation. That never came.
Okay.
So I give up.
Sounds great.
$10 burned on fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That sucks.
Bobby should get his on Monday, though. And
yeah.
Hopefully it's a monthly reset.
It better, since I didn't have any of like the weird ordering issues that you did. So it better say it on it. I'm excited to get it and get it in my hands and play around with it, but it really sucks the issues that you were going through with it. That really, really sucks. But so we're starting off on a bad foot with Xbox, but they did announce a bunch of games coming to the Xbox Series X and their other platforms at this Xbox showcase. Before we dive into game by game and kind of go down bit by bit, what did you think of the show as a whole, Justin?
I thought my initial feelings immediately after the show was one of disappointment. I thought it was kind of a weak show. Especially it was right around the time that all those frozen Halo screens were coming out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, all of this looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up rewatching it over with Giant Bomb stream. I watched it again and I had stronger feelings the second time through. I was able to pay attention a little bit more. And I thought some of the games that they showed that I didn't really get to pay attention to the first time because I was watching while working looked a little better than I thought. So I didn't come away feeling like I did at the end of the Sony press conference, but I definitely feel better upon a second viewing. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think, and I'll be talking about this, I think, a lot as we go along today. But I do feel like this conference and the stuff that they showed and the way they're positioning themselves in this sort of before console run up is sort of the way I think Xbox is branding itself overall, which is, hey, we don't care where you play our games. We don't even care if you pay full price for our games. You just pay $10 a month and play all these games. You can try any of them. It doesn't cost you anything extra. You can play them. You can play them all to completion. There's no there's no strings attached. Play them on your PC. Play them on your console. Play them in the cloud if you have Game Pass Ultimate. And even if they don't look and show as the most exciting things in the world, you should try them because there's not really much of a barrier for you to try them. And I think that kind of comes across in like the vibe of the press conference, which is they had a few like things that we'll talk about that they showed little bits of, right? That they showed little bits of that might be very cool to see and very like exciting to see in a couple of years when they finally dive into them, right? But I think for the most part, they showed a bunch of games, which they all said were going to be basically on Game Pass, that some of them look cool. Some of them look like they might have interesting ideas. None of them like jazz me up a super amount, but I'm also thinking to myself, I don't have to spend $60 on any of or $70 or how much the games are going to be on any of these games. I can just play them with this amazing rad subscription that I already have. So I don't necessarily need to feel this like burning crazy excitement for like all the stuff they're showing because they're not requiring me to have the same amount of investment that Sony is in what they're doing.
I think the biggest winner out of yesterday was Game Pass, like
Yeah.
you were saying. Um, out of both Sony and Microsoft, the point was made best out of both those conferences. Like, hey, you should sign up for Game Pass.
Yeah.
You have to do this.
Yeah.
Everything you see here today, you can play on Game Pass, which was a very, very smart way of doing it. And it was really good to lead off the stream with that instead of maybe doing that at the end. Because it was like, oh, anything I see today, I can play if I have this service. Which, if
Yeah.
you have an Xbox or a PC, it would be foolish to not have it.
Yeah, and it seems like they didn't like say this like 100%, but they didn't really delineate. They didn't say like, okay, this is going to be on console Game Pass or PC Game Pass, and I think that my thinking from that is that when we get to the next generation, I don't think there's going to be really a divide anymore, between like the new stuff that shows up on Game Pass. Old stuff different because those games weren't developed. Mark, we're not targeting you, okay? I think you'll see everything, because everything they were showing in the last like slide would always see like Xbox. It would at least say Xbox Series X, PC, basically, after it was over. If not Xbox Series X, Xbox One, and PC when it was over. So I think all these games are going to end up on PC Game Pass as well. I don't know that for sure. They did also announce before the show, right, that and they said it at the show too, that if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you're gonna get the xCloud streaming service for free. Basically, you're gonna be able to use xCloud included in your Xbox, your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which is great, because that means this is the stuff you can play on your tablet or your phone, or even stream to a laptop or something like that. It makes again, I don't want to go too much tangent, but it makes Stadia, I think, look even worse in like comparison now at this point, for Xbox to be like, pay us $15 a month and you get all of these games, like hundreds of games, plus like you get to play them wherever you want to, on any device, whatever. It's a great proposition, and I think, again, what is very fascinating to me is we've always talked about, right, that it seems like Microsoft and Sony were always like in one camp, and Nintendo's like, we're doing our own thing over here, like we're weird and jumping up and down, and it feels like, even though Xbox is still playing in, like, they're still playing the hardware game, they're starting to like they're still playing that hardware game and doing the big class hardware, but they're doing this other kind of unique weird thing that makes them different than Sony, and I think that's really cool and interesting to see. Meg says Xbox pretty much kicked Stadia in the stomach, then pushed them over in the mud. And I completely agree with you. Over a cliff, Justin. Exactly. And so I came away feeling like, cool, I saw some stuff that I'm interested in. The stuff that I'm really interested in, we saw like very little of. We saw just like little like CG trailers, or just little like titles, basically. But there were a couple neat things which we'll get into as we go through. But overall, I thought it was good. Not as exciting as Sony, but I think interesting in its own way, I would say.
Fair.
Do you want saying anything else about the overall?
No, I mean, let's get into some of the games.
Yeah, I will say, they had the cutaways to the executives. They had real ass camera crews, real ass lighting. It was like not like bad webcam, bad microphone stuff, which I was sort of interested in. Drew, and I do agree that Stadia is a good idea with bad execution. It seems like whatever xCloud is going to be, as long as it, and I've been in the betas and I've seen how it works. As long as it works, it's just a better execution on the idea, 100%. All right, so they talked about a couple of things in like the pre-show, which we'll go over very fast, I think. They announced that Dragon Quest XI S is coming to Xbox, which is the first time I think a Dragon Quest game has been on Xbox. So that's coming on December 4th. It's on Xbox Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass for PC. Exo Mecha, which is coming to Xbox Series X and Xbox One in 2021, is a free-to-play game that features giant sword-fighting mechs. They showed a trailer for Watch Dogs Legion. They did something called Echo Generation, which is a turn-based adventure game with a gang.
That looked cool.
Yeah, it did look cool. Hello Neighbor 2, which Hello Neighbor is one of those games that's wildly popular that I have never touched. You know, Andy's here. Hello, Andy. And then they did like an ID at Xbox console launch exclusive thing. They talked about a game called Balan Wonderworld, which is by the person who made Nights into Dreams. And that game looked wacky as hell and kind of cool. I liked the way it looked a lot, like the art style a lot. Don't really know what it is, but I guess it's an action platformer. But I thought it looked neat. And then they started the real show. And that's what we'll get into it. So they kicked it off with Halo Infinite. And Gruen was saying in chat, out of the gate with Halo Infinite was a good move. I want to know, Justin, you're as big a Halo fan as I personally know. How did you feel about the Halo Infinite presentation?
Mixed.
Yeah.
I said this yesterday in our news break. You know, I thought the gameplay looked fun. I thought the graphics were not good. Not good at all.
I watched it again, and the main thing that's bad about it, or subpar about it, I don't want to say bad. It doesn't look bad, but it looks kind of generic. Is that the lighting is just very flat and not dynamic in the footage they showed. And they've said since then, they said then, like, the game's still in development. We're in July. The game comes out in like November or whatever. There's still like a lot of time to do those final passes. And whenever this demo was made too, we don't know, right? This demo could have been made 2 months ago.
Another thing about that though is everything that Xbox is doing right now rides on this game. Like, this is their big.
I don't think everything does not ride on Halo.
How many times yesterday did we hear Jeff Keighley say, "We're gonna have Halo Infinite gameplay"? Halo Infinite gameplay.
Yes.
Like, all they've talked about is Halo for months.
I totally agree with you. I think they are putting a lot. They put a lot of emphasis on it. I'm saying I don't think that Halo is that game anymore. What I'm saying.
I don't think it's that game, but I think Microsoft thinks so.
Yeah.
So if Microsoft thinks so, and they can't get a vertical slice of that game looking fantastic for 8 minutes, something's wrong. Yes,
but that ignores the development reality of the fact that, you know, they're not going, especially in the situation we're in right now in the world, like. They might be like, they might have gone to them and might have said, hey, if we put a team on polishing up 8 minutes of this game right now to look like it's going to be at release, we're not going to make release. Like, you know what I mean? Like
that's a fair point.
You know,
it's fair because of what's going on, but
yeah.
It just feels like, you know, the problem with it when it was in motion, I thought it looked fine. I thought some of the textures didn't look that great, but it was like, all right, like, you know, it looks like Halo. The gameplay itself looked like a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Open world,
yeah,
grappling hook, bigger than 4 and 5 combined. I'm all for it. But when we stopped and we saw some of those like still screenshots of the enemies, it looks like what happens when you run a 4K resolution over a game that wasn't supposed to go over 480p's. Like, the armor on some of those brutes looks like it was photoshopped on. So, like, to me, that's a little bit worrisome. We don't know if it's, you know, if it's just because of the way the world is right now, or is it because that they have to be able to make it so the game plays on a console that was made in 2013 that was underpowered when it came out to begin with?
Yeah, but I mean, there's going to be different textures and scale for Series X and One X. I mean, look at PC games. If you put a PC game on low settings and you put it on ultra settings, it's a different looking beast.
They said that game was running on a PC with specs for an X.
Series X. I'm sure it was. I don't think what they were playing was a Xbox One version of the game. What I'm saying is, it's July. That demo is probably from. They probably started working on whatever that was going to be in May, or they're probably locking it down from where it was in like May, June, So we're probably
Me, I'm pretty openly forgiving and optimistic when it comes to these things. Like, I want to play that Avengers game, even though it looks rough as hell.
yeah.
So when I say that I'm slightly concerned about the way that a game looks, you've got to have a sense of how I'm feeling.
Yeah. We got some stuff in the chat I want to catch up with. Megs is saying she doesn't think if Halo fails, Xbox Series X fails.
I don't think it's that far.
And that Game Pass is already bigger than Halo. Cody asked if they working on for 5 years though. Yeah, but we don't know what that development cycle looks like, right? They could have stopped and restarted multiple times. And what developers always say is that polished stuff comes last. Like all that stuff comes at the end. And I went back and watched like the like 60 frames a second, like 2K trailer or whatever. Sorry. And it definitely looked better than it looked when I was running on stream. Oh, and Green asked, what are the chances Halo is delayed? There's 0 chance Halo gets delayed. I agree with Megs who responded to that. There's no way it gets delayed. I don't think it's that kind of situation. I just think that I'm sure they knew before they ran that stuff, like what the reaction was going to be to the look of the game. I don't think they're stupid, right? I think that they knew, but they've been promising Halo gameplay for however long, and they couldn't do this big ass like, this is when we're going to show you like what's coming out this fall. They couldn't not show Halo, right? They couldn't wait another month or two. They just couldn't. So they had to show what they had, right? And look, if the game looks that way, I'm not going to be psyched about it, right? But if it plays well and it's fun, then
Sure.
it'll be fine, right? We've played not so great looking games for the era they came out in and had plenty of fun playing them. But I just think. But the thing is, like, I think it's funny because I think I remember back when they showed Halo 3 for the first time, people were also like down on them for the way the game looked because it looked like a Halo game, right? It didn't have that much difference, but there were things in this that like the texture on the guns like was weird, like it was very flat. It's all that kind of stuff is just the lighting, like I said, was very, very flat. Because like it was just like a big open bright area that had no like definition or anything like that. And then the thing I actually disliked about it the most, I would say, was like, and the word that I'm actually sort of like, they never really got this right, did they? Was like the face of the one human dude that you see who was like your weird like buddy cop movie partner who's like, oh, you are just the worst, and whatever. And then I don't mind like that tension. I think that could be a fun thing to have in the game because we never really had that in a Halo game before. But I just think his facial animation compared to what we've seen in other games was very. I mean, it was good. I'm not gonna say it was bad, but it was not what we've been used to seeing in games of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And Bungie and 343, that's never been their strong suit is like the facial animation of characters, but it just makes me wonder a little bit about like the structure of 343 and Microsoft and how much they have to do with like, hey, like this game needs to sort of like look like games look now, you know what I mean? Or they're just like, you're the Halo team, make your Halo game and we'll come and give you notes, but like it's your ship, run with it. I don't know how that stuff goes, but I also now. Justin, you probably remember more about Halo 5 than I do. At the end of Halo 5, was Master Chief lost in space?
No.
He wasn't, right? So this is skipping forward, like, because in the trailer it says like 100 and whatever many days since we lost. So there's got to be
what though?
We lost to that other new race of people or whatever.
At the end of Halo 5,
Cortana's rampant,
rampant and reaching out to all other AIs to join her.
Yeah.
So we see like other ships' AIs joining Cortana and leaving leaving their human overlords, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not mentioned at all in any
Yeah.
of this. And I
Yeah.
think at one point Cortana activates the rings. I've only beaten Halo 5 once,
Yeah.
and it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I feel like she activated the rings.
Yeah.
This is why I insta disable Cortana on my computer.
um. So yeah, I remember the end being like, oh, we got to go find this scientist person. And then it like did like a hard cut, like you're supposed to be freaked out about this because it's an important character. And I was like, I don't know who that is. Yeah, so that's what I thought. So I want to make sure I wasn't misremembering. So they start out with this kind of like, hey, it's been like 100 and however many days since the Alliance, whatever, lost. We don't know to who. The end, there's like this new kind of, I think, race of like people, right? This is not that other race from Halo 4, right? This is a different race of
It's a brute.
like, yeah.
No, it's that's part of the Covenant. That's
that was a
that's the
regular.
Covenant.
That was no. They called themselves something else though.
He's like, I think he's a separate faction.
Okay, that was a Covenant like
I'm
brute.
pretty sure.
'Cause he's like, we're the
yeah,
lost,
the
or we're the
banished.
like
The
abandoned,
banished.
we're the banished.
Banished.
I
think that's diving into like Halo outside lore, like book lore and stuff, which I've never really gotten into.
Yes, Andy, there was another Halo trailer that teased the guy in the shuttle finding Master Chief floating in space. Yes, there was, but again, that also is like, well, how did he get in space? Like, we don't know what happened, right? The banished. There we go. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's cool that there's like a mystery about like happened. I'm sure they will fill it in the actual game. I was just mighty confused because I was like from watching, I was like, is this a totally new like Halo story? And they're like, no, this is like following 5, and it's gonna close out this series of 3 games. And we'll see. I mean, Cody says they're referencing the books really hard, it seems. If they want to reference their fiction, that's fine, as long as they're able to explain it in game, and do a good job of bringing that over. I think that's totally fine.
I think the one thing that we should just briefly mention is that they're committing to this platform for apparently the next 10 years of Halo.
Yeah, this is where all the Halo stuff is going to be, apparently.
They're turning. It's very strange. They come out and say we're not going to do the Destiny thing, but they're doing the Destiny thing. Halo Infinite will be the platform that they keep adding to instead of making Halo Infinite Part 2 or Halo 6 or this would be 7.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And they said, they're going to keep adding to it and they'll build it from there, which again, I'm not sure how this is all going to work, but are they going to eventually run into the problem that Destiny ran into when Destiny was built for older consoles in mind? And their platform is going to get too big for things and they'll have to take things out. Like we're forecasting quite a bit, but like, it's always odd when you're bringing older console generations along for the ride. And then eventually you're going to be like, well, we can't support those anymore, but we built this entire platform around being able to do that. So we've handcuffed ourselves.
Yeah, but I think it's different now because from 360 to Xbox One and PS3 to PS4, you're dealing with like a complete change in architecture, like of the system. And this, you're basically talking about like a more upgraded PC, basically, is what you're talking about. And I think especially with Xbox games, we need to start thinking about them in that way, which is that eventually, yes, there will be games that cannot run on the original Xbox One, but
there's already games that they showed in this thing yesterday that won't run on an Xbox One.
Yeah, which are going to come out in 3 years or whatever, right? But I think that for something like Halo Infinite, I think that the game's architecture is already built to work, right, on these other systems, and I would imagine going forward that won't be a problem until I'm sure there will be a split at some point, but that split will come when it's like enough years from now where it's not gonna like it's not gonna cause a huge stir. But I think they're when I say they're not doing a Destiny, I think they mean more we're not doing like a Destiny type video game. It's not a live game that's a loot based game. Whatever, like that kind of thing. It's not that kind of game. The gameplay itself, I mean, let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. I liked about it. The grappling hook looks cool. It's cool you can grapple to enemies. I think that's neat. The gunplay sure as hell looked like a Halo game, which was neat. I liked a lot, like there's one point, if I'm not wrong, he did a little like slide. He did like a little like like quick slide to the right. It looked like to me at one point when he was in a gunfight, but never really going down the scope at all. Like it looked like Halo gameplay. You know what I mean? And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's probably my most anticipated game of the year. Like, I'm very ready for a new Halo game. So, I mean, as nervous as I am about the way it looks, I'm that excited to play it.
Yeah. Say and that split is when I'll get the cheaper version of the Xbox Series X, Meg says, like when they actually finally stop supporting the Xbox, which I think is completely fine and it's exactly what they want, which I think is, going back, it's very interesting, right? This idea that we've never had a console maker, a console generation do this before, where the platform holder is like, you want to play these games on the old box? Sure. Like, that's fine with us. Like, we don't want to pull it away from you. We're not going to take it away from you. We know it's tough. We know people don't like switching right away. Stick with it as long as you want to. If you want it to look better, play it on the Series X, or you can play it on a PC if you have a good PC and you want it to look great. I think it's just an interesting place to be because we've never seen this before. It's usually the opposite, right?
Yeah, it's what Sony's doing.
Yeah, it's exactly what Sony's doing. And I'm sure that some of their games will look better and will have some more interesting stuff going on because of that. But I think what Xbox is doing is very consumer friendly, and that's neat. Second thing they announced was State of Decay 3, which surprised me. I know State of Decay 2 is a couple of years old now, but when I saw that trailer, I was like, oh, this looks like it's going to be a State of Decay. I was like, is this going to be a State of Decay expansion or just an announcement like we're expanding the game and it's coming to Series X? Like, that's what I thought it was going to be, not here's State of Decay 3. Yeah, a whole new game. With the snowy motif, it looks like.
I would love to try and get into one of those. Maybe this one will have four-person co-op instead of 2.
Didn't the last one had more than 2, didn't it?
But it was just 2. I'm pretty sure it was just 2.
It was also one of those things where it was co-op, but like none of your progress carried over. Right. You didn't share the same world.
Fix that stuff this time.
It's like the worst way to do co-op. In a game like that, where it's like resources and it's very like resource intensive. Forza Motorsport is in early development for Xbox Series X and Windows 10. The cars sure looks nice.
Those are some nice looking vehicles.
Just like every driving game that comes out, those
good looking wheels.
Yeah, they sure look nice. Then next they went over to Everwild, which is the new Rare game. We had seen, I believe, something for this previously. I knew it existed. We had seen some sort of trailer for it. I don't remember when we saw it, but there definitely was a previous trailer for this.
They just announced it at some point.
Did they?
It was like one of those like random Tuesdays where they were like, okay, here are 2 games we're making.
Yeah. It looks gorgeous.
Oh, it definitely does.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a survival game. I'm not totally sure what Everwild is from what they showed of it. But it is a gorgeous looking trailer. Definitely should check it out. And my renewed interest in Sea of Thieves has definitely made me more like, oh, Rare's new thing. Let's see what that's all about. So I'm interested to see what that is. Tell Me Why was the next thing they talked about, which is their collaboration with Don't Nod. It's coming to Xbox One on August 27th, but it's gonna be on Xbox Game Pass. This is the people who made Life is Strange, obviously, and it's noted to be notable because it has a trans lead in it, and they in fact have this whole FAQ on their website, basically going into the ways in which they're handling that character and the tropes that they are avoiding. It's a very interesting like thing to look at. It does apparently spoil some of the game if you look at it, so be careful there, but it is on their website. But yeah, it's got Ashley Birch in it for sure. She's one of the leads, and then the other lead is transgender, and it looks good. It looks like one of those games, but it looks like it's got the supernatural. They had some action stuff in that trailer as well, and I try to avoid as much as I can about like these story type games, like these like adventure games, as far as like all the details, because I want to be surprised by them. But I thought it looked cool. Justin, what did you think? Because you're not like a big Life is Strange fan, so
I thought it looked okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure that you'll tell me if it's good or not, and then if it's good, I'll play it.
Justin,
is that the one with the brother? That was the one with the brother and sister, right?
Yes.
Or was that a different one? Yeah, that was the brother and sister one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one it made it look interesting.
Yeah. I'm amped for it. That's one of the ones I'm most excited for, that are coming out right now. So I'm really, that was one of the highlights for me of the show. They mentioned that Ori and the Will of the Wisps is getting like completely, like, I guess remastered for the Xbox Series X. It's going to playable at 120 frames per second at launch. I believe they said it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, we'll launch this year. They didn't say it was going to be on launch day, but it will launch this year. Yeah.
That's a beautiful game. So playing that game at 120 will be nice, because it was a little bit rough on console.
Oh yeah, you played it on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's before you got your PC.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. They announced some DLC for the Outer Worlds called Peril on Gorgon, which looked like very. It was packaged as like a very campy sci-fi,
extremely campy.
Yeah. Like a movie that would have been in like, the grind, like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's Grindhouse, like kind of look to it. Justin, you really liked that game. Are you interested in playing story DLC for it?
I don't know. Maybe. I definitely feel that was one of the. And another thing is we have some DLC coming for the Outer Worlds. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure I'll try it eventually.
Yeah. So the next thing they announced was Avowed, which is a first-person fantasy RPG from Obsidian Entertainment. No release date was given, but this one, it just had Xbox Series X and Windows 10 on it. And so I think it was the first game that just said that, right?
Yeah, this one's not going to be playable on old consoles.
Okay. And really, it was just like a very Fellowship of the Ring looking battle scene to start out with, to the point where I was like, is this a Lord of the Rings game? And then we get this arrow kind of falling into this abyss, and we see our player character with sword, and did like kind of like a very Doctor Strange in the Marvel MCU sort of like spell thing with their hand.
It was 100% Skyrim. Hold up a sword with one hand, use magic with the other. And that's when I stood up and was like, yes,
for sure,
I want this. But what's interesting is it takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe.
Yeah, which is great, because not because I've never played Pillars of Eternity, but what I like about it is that they've already done all of this work to like create this universe, right? And it's neat that they can use it, much like Bethesda has used the Elder Scrolls universe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To do different things and create a bunch of different games and use the lore in all different places, right? The game will be more narratively or lore rich because of it. And those kind of games, I think, live or die for me by like the incidental storytelling that happens when you're out in the world, like finding weird secrets, or finding like that cabin by the river with the dead person in it, and you're like, why is this person here? And they have like, you read the book and you find out, all that kind of stuff. Like that kind of stuff was why I liked Skyrim so much. And if they're able to do that in this, I think it'll be really good. But yeah, we barely got any of it. I mean, I'm sure that was a cutscene. I don't know if that was in engine footage at all. When you saw the sort of first person view with the actual sword and magic, but it was cool nonetheless. And it was one of the ones that I was most like, hey, I wish that there was more about this and this was coming out sooner. It was like one of the
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from Halo, that's my big takeaway from the conference. And actually, I want to put that question to our Twitter. That was the winner as well.
Mm-hmm.
As everyone voted for Avowed, because another Skyrim would be nice.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Skyrim.
Made by the people who made, Fallout, New Vegas. It's good things. good things for sure. Because we're not getting that next Elder Scrolls game till God knows when.
Yeah.
5 years from whenever the other game comes out.
Yeah.
The space game. Starfall? Yes, I think so. Starfall, I believe is what it's called. Then they showed another sort of indie type game, which is called As Dusk Falls, which had a very, very interesting art style.
Starfield.
2027, Grun says for Elder Scrolls, and you're probably not really very off
I think you're early, if anything.
As Dusk Falls, which had a very interesting, like, comic book, like, by comic book I just mean like still frames, basically, but very realistic, like, drawings of people. It was an interesting looking thing. I think it's tough to show that trailer at a conference and or amongst a bunch of other games that are, you know, more traditional looking and have it pop, but I thought it looked interesting. Then they showed more of Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. They revealed that the game was set in Iceland. This is also kind of like a developer diary sort of like tied to it. It was not much new footage of the game at all, which I was honestly surprised about that we didn't see more of it. Since they showed some of it at the Game Awards last year. They said there's going to be another conference in a couple of months, so maybe we'll see more stuff there where they kind of fill out the post-launch lineup a little bit more. But yeah, I was very surprised that it was not, they didn't show more of it. I expected to see like a gameplay trailer for it. Then they showed some, they really did show off a lot of like, look how many studios we've bought, and they all have games they're making, and yeah, maybe they're not going to come out for a little while, but we've got them. And they showed Psychonauts 2, which obviously they bought Double Fine last year. I never played the first Psychonauts. Did you, Justin?
No. Psychonauts comes on, I take a nap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have no interest.
I mean, I like Double Fine games, so I'm interested in it. They had Jack Black singing a song, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, we've seen that game, I don't know, 2,000 times by now. So
just release the damn thing. Come on.
It's not coming out until 2021 either, which is crazy to me. I really like the art style of it. Like I like the 3D platformer-ish look to it. We don't get a lot of games that look like that anymore, so I like that about it. But other than that, I'll be there to play it because I like the sense of humor of Double Fine games. But it just rings another thing with, you know, their showing in this whole thing, which was stuff that was barely anything, that was just like, hey, here's like a CG like quick little tease of something that's cool, it's coming out later, or longer gameplay footage of games that I'm like, okay, like I knew this existed already. This is not exciting to me. Grun, we'll answer your question a little bit later when we wrap up the end of the conference. Then they went into like their third party look, and they were kind of like, hey, all these games are coming to Game Pass, and here they are. They announced Destiny 2 is coming to Game Pass with all of its expansions in September, which includes the new one, Beyond Light. That is a big deal. That's really cool. It makes me even more be like, please, can you please have crossplay Destiny? Like,
wait, Beyond Light's coming to Game Pass?
Pretty sure they said that.
I thought it said all current expansions.
I thought they said including Beyond Light.
Cody,
let us know.
Cody will let us know
if he's still here.
Podcast.
Yes, I'll said yes.
Oh wow, then yes, they really need to freaking get crossplay going.
That's what I want.
Guess we're moving to Xbox.
Hey, I'd be willing to. So that was cool. They showed a cool trailer for it too. They showed off like the new. It will include it when it launches. Cross progression is there, Megs.
Yeah, cross progression's there. Cross play is not.
Yeah, you can literally like. There's a process you do online. I don't know if you can do it right from the PlayStation. But you can really basically say like, hey, I put my save into cross save or whatever, and literally like can just bounce back and forth between whatever. You can launch the PC version and it'll just be there. You can play the Xbox version and it'll just be there. So you should definitely, that's definitely there. The only thing stopping me is it doesn't have cross play, and there are people that like Andy who don't have a PC that I want to make sure we still play with. So yeah, the Bungie website you need to go to. Thank you, Alejandro. Even chirping for the Destiny talk. Thank you, Alejandro. So yeah, that was cool. The trailer was cool. The ice powers look neat. Yeah, I mean, it was a neat trailer for sure. I know Cody did talk about this. Podcast is out. Darkness Zone. Cody, if you want to throw your link in the chat, you absolutely can do that. Cody does a show all about Destiny.
Andy.
I'm not shaming you, Andy. This is not a shame. I promise you. This is me
shaming you.
This is me honestly saying I don't want to play without you, Andy. So I'm not going to move to PC.
What's the point of living if you can't play with Andy?
Exactly. But I will say this: if Destiny 2 is coming to Game Pass also on, no, I don't have it. I don't have your name programmed into Nightbot yet, Cody. You have to just put the link to the podcast in yourself. Coming to PC Game Pass, when Andy isn't playing, I can play on PC and play all the expansions without having to pay for them again. So that is a good thing. That is a very good thing. Then they showed a trailer for Stalker 2, which I've heard so many things about Stalker, but never played any of them. And I know it's like a crazy loved like survival horror / immersive sim type game that was well ahead of its time. PC Game Pass is next year. Okay, cool. So I don't think I'll ever go back and play the original Stalker.
No, but I'll try this.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I think that Cody was already in there because that was like it was his at first. It was his streaming, I think, was in there. But yeah, so I'll definitely try it. It looks cool to me. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide, which is Vermintide, but set in the 40K universe with like Space Marines and stuff like that. It looks cool. When it was first playing, I was like, "Is this GTFO?" Like at the very beginning of it. But no, it's a game like that, but it's, you know, it's like a Left 4 Dead type of situation. Tetris Effect Connected, which is multiplayer in Tetris Effect, is coming. It'll be out on Series X and X1 and Holiday, and will be on Game Pass because they said they're all going to be on Game Pass. So
you're gonna play that game.
What?
Play that game.
I played that game. That was a good
Not
game.
You. Anybody listening?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And then one of the other games I'm very excited about was Image and Form, who make the SteamWorld games. They have a third-person adventure game coming out called The Gunk.
It's a great name.
It's a great name, and I thought it looked great. That's one of the ones I'm most excited about.
Me too.
It looks like it's going to be a ton of fun, and they just make really good games. And it's cool to see them doing something outside their comfort zone of like a 2D world, because they make all different types of games all over the place. So it's neat. I'm definitely excited about that one. I think the game that honestly impressed me the most was that game, The Medium, that they showed. They showed it a little bit at the other conference, but they went a little more in depth with it this time, and they didn't have like weird like interview stuff interspersed throughout it. It looks like a spiritual successor to like Silent Hill or something like that, and the idea of being able to switch back and forth between worlds is really appealing to me. And there was that one moment where she was like hiding, and it was like, "I know you're here," and I was like, "This is gonna be scary." I felt scared by it. That usually happened in trailers. Monster Closet.
Zero.
Monster Closet time for The Medium. But this is
from when we go from a bad situation to a worse situation.
This is made by the team who makes all horror games, who has like the most ridiculous studio name for what they make. Bloober team. They made the Layers of Fear games, and they made the Blair Witch game, and Alejandro, I totally agree. Justin, Meg says if you agree to play the game on stream, she'll donate 500 biddies right now. I'm just saying, don't shake your head.
I'm having a good time streaming, playing Hitman and stuff. Don't you guys like seeing me happy? Why do you guys want to torture me?
Well, because this game's not going to torture me if I play it.
Yes, Megs will end up playing the medium
yes.
on stream.
Yeah, he said yes. He said yes, Megs. So, and then they showed this thing called New Genesis Phantasy Star Online 2, which is essentially like a complete like revamping of Phantasy Star Online 2 without going. Yeah,
PSO2 is like a 10-year-old game that shouldn't exist on current consoles and is a complete waste of everybody's time. Cody.
But I will say this: the trailer looks cool. That trailer looked damn cool.
Hey, look, it's cool what happens when you have modern graphics in a video game.
Like the way the character was moving and like the sword play and all that stuff. Like I was like, yeah, I'll play this. So that looked definitely like neat. And then they closed out like their kind of like third party thing with some more of that Crossfire X game, which is this multiplayer shooter, which is like apparently huge, like internationally.
China, right?
Yeah, in China. Yeah, it's coming here, and we already knew it was coming. Yes, Cody, I saw on Discord that you're playing World of Warcraft, staying very, very current. We knew it was coming, right? Because I think it was at the last E3, right, that they announced that it was coming to Xbox. Yeah. What we didn't know, and we got announced this time, which was very surprising, is that Remedy, who make Control and you know Alan Wake and Max Payne, is doing the campaign for this game.
So I'll tell you, I had zero interest in this game.
Yeah,
zero. More than zero. And then
better than 500 biddies.
And when I saw Remedy was making the campaign, it was like, well, I guess I'm going to at least try it.
Yeah. And yeah, it looks cool. I think now I'm not totally sure because they were look at this. I think that the multiplayer portion of Crossfire X will be on Game Pass, but the campaign you'll have to pay for. I think they're separated out. I think so. This was like they would put like a weird title on screen underneath like when the trailer was playing. But it also for like what I assumed was like a free-to-play game in China, the visuals were really nice. Like it looked really nice.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like a high-budget shooter. Yeah, now that Remedy's in the campaign for it, I'll definitely play it, and then maybe I'll try out the multiplayer because of that. Also, worth saying again, all of these games on Game Pass. All the games we've mentioned. Literally all the games we've mentioned on Game Pass. Can play them anywhere. So then they quickly went through. They said that Sea of Thieves, none of this stuff should surprise anybody. Sea of Thieves, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, and even more games are going to be optimized for Series X. So essentially, they're going to be Series X versions of those games. I'm sure Sea of Thieves and Forza will look fucking unbelievable. That water in Sea of Thieves is going to
make that water look even better.
And Gears 5 is a good looking game, but it's a Gears of War game. It looks the way it looks. And Gears Tactics, I believe, will be coming to Series X. Yeah. That's another thing. Yes, Mark, I'm sorry, but not everyone has, another successful $1,200 build that cost them, $1,800 or whatever it ended up being.
Oh, no. It was way more than that.
Okay.
It was like 2,200.
2,200.
Go buy another monitor.
Yeah, $1,500 build. Sorry, Mark, I'm getting all your things wrong. And then they closed the show out with, and Mark says, I will go buy another monitor. So Microsoft announced the new Fable game, finally, from Playground Games, the makers of the Forza Horizon series. The worst kept secret for anybody who pays attention to game like journalism or game rumors at all.
I was disappointed in this.
Because they didn't show anything?
They showed nothing, and this game has been in development for too long to not show something.
We don't actually know how long it's been in development. It didn't pop up as a rumor until last year that it was gonna.
I thought it was 2 years ago.
No, it was last E3. It was the last E3 that they were talking about it possibly showing up. And so obviously people knew it was happening, but we don't even know what stage it was happening. Right? We don't even know if it had just started prototyping. We don't know. So, and also I think, all of these companies are thinking that they can do the Nintendo Direct thing where they're just like, hey, we're going to pop in and talk about a couple games and then we're out of here, right? But the difference is that Nintendo is just like 6 hours before it happens, they're like, hey, we're going to talk about some games. So people are like, oh, cool. And then they watch some games and then that's it. You can't spend months hyping up a stream and then be like, and guess what? We have another stream in a couple months where we'll show more stuff. Like, it's just not a satisfying thing to say at the end of a video, because as a viewer, I don't care. Like, I want you to give me the most exciting thing you can possibly give me right now. Like, so I can be excited. And then in 2 months, if you want to show more Fable or you want to show more of whatever other game you're going to show, whatever, cool. But like, I'm never going to be upset that you jumped out the tank, in this like big unveiling video.
Show PR, show behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Do the stuff that most of the time I don't care about. But if you're just going to show me a logo with a pretty CGI trailer in front of it as your big closeout thing for a game that's been as leaked as this game, you gotta show me a little bit more. You gotta do something.
Yeah. They did sort of like hint at the sense of humor of the game, which is good because that was a big part of the Fable games. Justin, did you play any of the Fables? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I never did.
I played a good portion of 2. I didn't finish 2, but I enjoyed it. It was a simple kind of, adventure RPG, I would say. Not as in depth.
I would love it now.
Yeah.
I just wasn't in the mood for them back then.
Yeah. And I mean, their big selling point back then was like, you're going to start as a kid and then you're going to get older. And the stuff you do when you're a kid is going to affect what happens when you get older. That there was like the big thing about those games. I never played 3 because I heard 3 just was not as good. That's all coming from just reviews and people talking about it. They're fun. They were fun. Also had bad co-op. They had co-op in Fable 2. But there was one thing where like, oh, you can come to somebody else's game and then nothing transfers back over to your game. It was one of those things, which sucked. But they were fun games with very interesting personalities, different than other RPGs and other big, Microsoft games, especially at the time. Because that's when Microsoft kind of ruled the roost as far as what games were popular or not. So that ended the conference. They said, hey, there's going to be a new conference, later on this year. I'll
probably hear about the prize.
Yeah, I would assume so, unless they just drop that at some point. Here's the thing. I don't know when Sony is going to announce their price, but if Sony announces their price in a week, Microsoft is not going to wait until whenever to announce their price. They're going to drop it immediately and say pre-orders are open, right? Do it. So we'll see. Grun had asked earlier on when we were in the middle of this, do you think not having a price hurt them? And what do you think, Justin?
I was going to say, if they didn't get out there and say that at the beginning, way before the stream even started, like in the weeks before, they were like, this is just games, no hardware, no anything else. Mm-hmm. Then yes, I think people that were going in there looking for the price would have come out and been like, what the hell is going on? They at least got it out of the way now.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, to be fair to Microsoft, they had started talking about the tech behind their box and shown off their box way earlier than Sony did. Like December. They showed up in December, they showed off that what their box looked like. And they've had the strategy all along of sort of like, oh, we're gonna do a little article, we're gonna do a little mini video, we're gonna put a little specs here, we're gonna do a little bit there. They've been dripping that stuff out. I think so when they had these conferences, they didn't have to go into it in depth. And I think that strategy was always novel, but I think that events like this and sort of people's short-term memory, show flaws in that plan, because it's like, if they had closed as being like, here's the box, look at it, all you can do, I think people would have been more excited about it. Sorry, Justin, you were saying.
I was going to just say, this format sucks.
Yeah.
Give me back E3. Like, people are like, we don't need E3. Like, people could just hold their own conferences. I think that we could see now. Well, yeah, they can. They could hold their own. They could hold their own things and all that. It absolutely sucks the way they're doing this.
I mean, I don't mind like the video or whatever that they showed. Like, I don't care about that. I don't need it to be in a big.
I'm talking about for the console launch and stuff like that.
Yeah. For
like in this specific time frame, not having E3, that ramp up where like this is the way we do things, is I feel is hurting hype. And
yeah,
it like the information is getting all like it's distilled. Like, oh wait, what did they say about that? Well, will the smart delivery thing work? Like, people are getting confused on like easy details that if it was just all at one time, this is what it does, this is the price, this is when it's coming out. It builds to crescendo and then it explodes and then pre-orders open tonight. Surprise.
Yeah.
And then you just go.
Yeah.
Like, the way that they're doing this just feels so unnecessarily long and annoying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just doing the thing where they're metering out the data over so long a period, I think is a thing that hurts them in this place. And also, like, we talked about this back when it happened, but having that thing they had 2 months ago where they were like, here's some Series X games from our partners or whatever, and it was kind of like, okay, this is cool, but it's kind of underwhelming. I don't know why you have that and this be separate, especially because in this they brought one of the games from that into it. The medium was totally in that conference. Like, take the best from that, put it in this, end with the box and explain smart delivery again. Like, if this is going to be like your mainstream big showcase, you got to treat it as such. You don't have to go and do it big time. Like, Sony just had a slide that was like, fast SSD, it does this, it does that. If they had just done that in the middle of the thing, like, it would have been better than what they did. And I think that, and like, I don't know, again, this might be part of their whole thing of de-emphasizing the box. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, buy this box if you really want the best, but like, you can play it a bunch of different places, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe this is just the reality we live in, Microsoft, because they're not so singularly focused on one device anymore. But it could have used a little bit more flair and a little bit more, I think, impact in that way.
Yeah.
I didn't expect price at all or release date. None of that stuff. Even if they had announced it beforehand, I wouldn't have expected it. So
I might have, if they didn't announce it beforehand, I might have thought like, okay, it's nearly August.
Yeah,
we're getting to that time where they got to start letting us know what's up. Yeah. So I might, if they didn't get out and say that they weren't doing it, I probably would have leaned towards especially after Sony showed the box and stuff, like, all right, well, we got to one up Sony now, so let's give the release date and let's get some pre-orders going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see. Because I honestly, I always says, I don't think it really matters when they announce the price and release date. The people who are going to buy it right away are going to buy it right away no matter what. They're going to hop on Amazon and pre-order it, and it's going to be done. The only thing that sucks about like not having a long lead time is if you're pre-ordering it on Amazon or something, you can't like pay it off slowly. It's gonna come in a big lump or whatever, which is the part that sucks about it. But yes, that was the conference. My personal thought was, I wish that this had been more of like what Sony did in only one way, which is that it would have been more of a mix of, hey, here are our big first party games, and here are a couple big third party games. Other than they did announce a couple, but like some of the, like, Sony had like the next Resident Evil game, you know what I mean? Like, not like, and there was nothing of that level in this conference.
Well, they couldn't, if they did that. Well, I agree. I think that would have been better overall. They couldn't have said everything you see today is on Game Pass, which I think was the whole point of their conference.
Yes, absolutely. I totally get that. But they could have also been like, from now on, everything is on, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Yeah. But, I just would like to have seen some big third party stuff, or something that was just surprising in a way that was like super exciting, you know, not like I think Avowed was the closest to that, but so little of it was showed. It's so far away, and so little of it was showed that it was just like, okay, this is just like a nebulous thing that, yeah, I'm excited about it, but you know,
That's
who
3
knows?
years from now, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They literally just put out a game last year.
I'm not ready to talk about that time yet. I won't be taking questions. Can we please move on?
Okay, so that's the Xbox showcase. Let's talk a little bit about games that we've been playing recently.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's leave the big one for the end.
Sure. I don't know if we'll actually have time to do the spoiler cast.
No, but we might
talk about some thoughts.
Yeah, some thoughts, and we might, you know, be able to like be like, hey, from now on we'll talk a little bit about spoilers, because you know I do want to talk about it before the game is 7 years old. Have you played anything else, Justin, than stuff we've been playing on stream?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been playing a game called Dicey Dungeons on Steam.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you've been obsessed with Dicey Dungeons.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of one of those card games that I'm apparently in love with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I played Slay the Spire on stream a couple weeks ago, and it's an interesting twist on one of those. You're a dice. You're a person who gets turned into a die.
Yes, you are.
And there are 5 or 6 different characters, and the thing about it is it's all based on chance. So the first character is like a warrior, and like you have to make it through like this game show and defeat enemies. So like the first character is a warrior, and he'll have a card to start and 1 die, and he'll have a special card as well. For him, it's reroll your die. And so the higher you get in this level, like the further you progress, you get more health, but you also have more die, but you also get more cards. So it'd be like, oh, on 6, you do 6 damage, plus you will burn 2 of their die. So like when it's their turn, 2 of their die will be on fire, and they'll lose 2 health for grabbing them to use them. And then, like I said, there's like 5 or 6 characters. They all have different mechanics. One of them is like playing blackjack, where you want to keep rolling the die and not break it at 10. And then the higher you level, it'll go up to like 12, 14. And those are the points that you could slot into the cards. It's an amazing game. If you like those types of games, you know, Slay the Spire, Monster Train, any of those, I highly recommend this. I got it on the Steam sale for like $5, and I've put like 20 hours into it. What else have I been playing? Paper Mario, the Origami King. I'm a handful of hours into Ajora. I think it's charming. It's well written. I've never really played a Paper Mario game. I kind of played, I think it was 1,000 Year Door on the Wii. A little bit of it, but it wasn't I wasn't in the right mind space for that type of game when that thing came out. And I know Jorah has really wanted to play the Paper Mario games that were on Wii U that they will apparently never port over to the Switch. So we were really excited for Origami King, and I'm about maybe like 4 hours into it. It's delightful. It's just a delightful game. The writing is sharp, like way sharper than a Mario game usually is. So there's jokes for me, and then there's jokes for Jorah, and it's nice that Jorah doesn't get my jokes. It's clean. It looks sharp. The combat system is this weird puzzle thing that I'm terrible at. Like everybody is on a dartboard, and Mario's in the middle, and they'll come out, and then they will scatter around the board, and you can grab the board and rotate it until you get them in a line, and then you could like jump on all their heads. But like one of the big kicks is that there's all these toads that are, you know, hidden throughout the game, and you have to use your hammer to pull them out of spaces and whatnot. And they'll all be in like the stands around you, and you could give money. Like it's a weird Mario game. Right now I currently have like 9,000 coins. You use the money for different things, like getting the toads to come do the fight for you and things like that. It's a lot of fun, and it's like exactly what I need right now. The other game that I'm playing is Persona 5 Royale. I am 15 hours into that game, and I have thoughts. I have mixed feelings.
Only 85 hours left to go, Justin.
Yeah, I know. I don't think about that. It's kind of like how I feel when I'm on the elliptical machine and I'm like, man, I don't got this today. I'm only at 15 minutes. And it's like, all right. I was like, all right, you lazy ass, just get to 20. And then when I get to 20, it's like, but you could do 25.
Mhm.
That's the way that I'm going to do this. And before you know it, you're on the elliptical machine for an hour
Right.
and you've sweated out 14 pounds. So that's the way I am with this game. It's like I'm 15 hours in and I feel like I'm losing it a little bit. I should definitely see the second dungeon. And then once I know I'm in the dungeon, I'm going to be like, well, I kind of want to see what happens next. Because, like, I'm interested in the story, totally.
Mhm.
It's just anything to do with the combat and dungeons, I have no desire for. Like, I want my dude to, like, get good at talking to girls and make
Yeah.
friends and, like, do all the daily day-to-day stuff and answer all the questions in class. Like, I think that was a really cool thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm cheating with the questions. So it's like if you cheat with the questions in class, you have to. I never knew this, but you had to pay attention to what the people say afterwards because those are the questions on the exams. It's like they'll explain something. It's like, oh, well, you knew this. But what did this actually mean? It's like, well, I have the answer guide, so my knowledge is going off the charts right now. I'm gonna really try and see this thing through to the ends. I just don't know how long it's gonna take me because we now stream
Yes.
20 hours a week.
Justin, I know. Well, that's an exaggeration.
20 hours a week? You think that's an exaggeration?
Yeah, it's more like 10 hours a week.
3 hours a night?
We don't really stream for 3 hours a night. 2.5 hours a night, really, right?
Very good. Very close.
Yeah. Even if it's 3 hours a night, it's 12 hours a week. Anyway, I know you, Justin, and I know how your brain works. How are you handling the fact that you have to do one thing or the other sometimes during the days?
I don't like it.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, I don't like it at all.
Do you
I'll
feel
ask the
anxiety
internet.
about it?
I don't feel anxiety yet because the choices have been pretty easy so far. It's like, well, who should I hang out with today? And it's like, well, I already know that with Skull or whatever that I have a level 4 bomb with him. So this other character, I forget the girl's name. I'm not even at level 2 yet. I should do this to get her rank up with me. I know that there'll be a time where I have to really pick and choose who I want to hang out with. And not looking forward to that. But so far, I've just been like, it's Sunday. What do I do today? And it's like, I'm going to ask the internet. And the internet says like, X amount of players did this today. And so I'm just, for right now, following that.
I don't want to spoil anything for you. I mean, you've gone to the second dungeon yet?
No. I'm at the part where I just discovered the dungeons, or I spent some time in the collective consciousness dungeon, the subway system,
like the underground. Okay,
yeah, where they make a really good callback to Totoro.
Yes.
Totoro. Yes.
Oh yeah, so you have met the cat.
Oh yeah. Well, you meet her.
I can't remember. I couldn't remember.
You meet him right away in the first dungeon.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was the first dungeon or the second dungeon.
No, it was he guides you through that first dungeon, but he turns into a bus in this place, and then he makes a really good line of I don't know, people in Japan just equate cats and buses for some reason. I was like, I know what you're talking about, video game. I've seen that movie.
You were like Captain America and the Avengers.
I understand that reference.
I understand that reference. That's cool. I'm really fascinated to hear Mementos. Yeah. Hear how you get on with the game. Like I played a good chunk of that game, and I've heard that Royale is great, and it's so much. It makes a good game already a game that was already good great. And I really want to play it, but I'm always like, I really played the game for 30 hours. Like, do I really want to replay those hours again?
That would be a tough sell for me.
It's a big hang up for me. What if it goes on super sale? I'll end up buying it and probably at least launching it at some point. For me, it really hasn't been too much off stream other than stuff we talk about a lot. Like we play, Warzone when we got some time, and we did very well the other night. Did super well the other night. We won, and we had a lot of really good games.
Since I've been playing so much on PC, and I've said this to you guys, coming back to console makes me feel like a god. Because I'm so bad at playing first-person shooters on PC. Like if you had watched, we just came off a stream from Mark and Valorant, and it's hard for me to be bad at a shooter, especially a first person one. And I'm miserable at Valorant on PC. And like I've been playing Titanfall on PC and like doing okay, like like evening out, doing all right, but I'm usually better at that. And I come back to Warzone with a controller and like aim assist, and I'm like, all you guys are in trouble.
So we've been doing very well there. I've been playing some Valorant with Mark and having a good time doing that. And then we played a couple sessions of Sea of Thieves on stream. We also played a little bit off stream as well. And it's just a good game, man. It's just a lot of fun.
Love that game. I mean,
a lot of fun.
I like that game.
Everybody else loves it except for you, Justin.
There's something about it. Like I don't care about the missions at all. Like they don't interest me at all. I love that game when shit is going sideways for us.
It's because you don't engage with the missions, Justin. You kind of like hop around the boat and like do whatever.
Somebody's got to stay on the boat for when somebody comes and tries to sink us.
There's some good like riddles and puzzles and stuff like that.
I have fun with you guys, but like I'm watching you guys have fun, and it's like I'll have fun when the Kraken comes and tries to sink the ship.
Like I put up the clip and we did it on stream, but that time when you and Andy were on the boat and like Davy Jones came up out of the water and me and Mark were in that like National Treasure like room and things started going sideways and we had to like solve the puzzle before we drowned or we would have lost the whole quest. It was just like I've never played a game where I felt so much like an adventure movie before, like totally. I felt like I've never experienced that before in a game. It's just really cool how they stuck with it and brought stuff, out and put stuff into it that has made it more dynamic and more fun to play.
That's where that game totally shines.
Yeah.
Is when it's chaos like that.
Yeah. It's just such a weird game because sometimes it's like the chillest thing in the world. Like you go from being uber chill to being uber stressed out in like the matter of a moment, essentially. Like you're just, we're on the open sea. It's all calm. What are we going to do? We're going to maybe be a little dull. We're just going to sail this island. I'll play an instrument and jump around. Then all of a sudden, ghost ships come out of the water or a megalodon is chasing you or whatever. It's just it's really good. That, and then I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I played a very little bit of Ghost of Tsushima. I don't really want to cast judgment on the game at this point. I have not played enough to really say much about it. It's a game that looks great. That has a structure that is my kryptonite that I'm really going to try to power through and play and see the stuff the game has to offer because people are really liking it and I would like to see what's there. And it's not that long of a game, so it's not going to kill me either way, but like when I was playing the other night, I was like, okay, the next step of this quest is like the other end of the island. Guess I'll just ride my horse for 3 minutes or whatever, or 4 minutes to the other end of the island. And I'm just not the person who's like, I'm just gonna go off and I'll see if I can. I'll stop for a battle or I'll do this little side quest. Like I'm just not that kind of player. So I don't get much joy out of like traversing a big world unless that world is like full of stuff to do and everything like that. That interests me. And so that stuff always makes me feel not as excited to go back to the game. I would say, but I'm definitely gonna check it out and try to see some of it through and see some of the stories and all that kind of stuff. Meg says this game's all about getting distracted. I know that's what like all open world games are about. It's just not how I like to play games. I just don't like to play like games that way. Like something like Spider-Man, like the traversal was so fun that the open world just being like full of like kind of menial side missions to do didn't really bother me because it was so fun to get from place to place. And that kind of open world game where you have like a really fun traversal mechanic, I think is one way that I end up like really enjoying an open world game. And the other way is like if that open world is full of I think I say this way and it's going to sound derogatory towards a lot of open world games. I don't mean it that way, but it justifies the existence of an open world, not just, hey, people make open world games now, so we're going to have an open world. Like if your world is big and empty, and it takes a long time to get across, like that to me is not just inherently more fun than just, let me just go to the next mission. Let me just hit a button and go to the next mission, and so, but this is not a problem with Ghost of Tsushima. Like that's just a problem like I have with those kind of games in general. And why I don't play a lot of them, but I like Sucker Punch a lot. So and they've made open world games that I have enjoyed. So I want to play and give it a real chance. Other than that, there really nothing. I just started Sekiro on stream, so we'll be doing that for the next however long, depending on how stuck I get on different things. I enjoyed that very much though. But the thing I really put the most of my time doing between then and now has been Last of Us Part 2. So we should talk about The Last of Us Part 2.
I'm gonna say one thing before we start.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
You're talking about Sekiro or Sekiro, however you say it. If you're listening to this and you haven't came to watch us stream, please do. Bobby's doing that, and I'm playing Hitman 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitman 2 is a fantastic video game. Megs, I saw your question before in Mark's chat, and I didn't get to answer it because I was mad. You asked how it's going. It's going great. It's going fantastic. Chat has been helping me by making me kill people in certain ways, or maybe killing everybody on the stage.
Yeah, Andy made him kill every single person in a level.
Thank God it wasn't one of. Thank God that didn't roll up on one of those other stages that is huge.
Yeah,
it came up on the smallest stage, which is great.
Yeah.
But we've been putting some clips on our Instagram, which is at Monthly Reset, and it is fantastic. That's so Andy. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's so Andy.
Yeah.
That game's just a lot of fun. I'm having a ball with it. I just got the DLC. We're gonna go back to the Hitman 1's original maps. I'm gonna be playing that for at least another couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can definitely talk about The Last of Us, but I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. It's nice to see Justin actually enjoying himself on stream.
Let me tell you, it's nice to be enjoying myself
and not completely pissed off all the time. So yeah, let's talk about The Last of Us Part 2. I don't know who. I will say I don't know how deep we're gonna get into it, but the beginning, we're not gonna get into spoilers other than like general like idea spoilers. So if you haven't played the game yet or you really don't want to hear anything, like it's probably a good time to tune out now because we're gonna talk about the game and I'm gonna mention character names and stuff like that. So I know some people are very like, I don't want to hear anything, but it's been a couple months, or a month, so I figure people are probably like mostly past that by now. But in case you're not, just know. If we're gonna talk about anything seriously spoiler, like we'll give you a clear warning of that before it happens. So Justin, just overall, what do you guys think? What do you think of The Last of Us Part 2? Thanks, Cody. See you later.
I feel conflicted on it a bit. My original feelings were that I really enjoyed it, and I think that's true. I definitely enjoyed playing the game. Like it took me 25 hours. I'm like I tore through that in a couple of sittings.
Right.
Mainly because I was just so paranoid about getting spoiled that I was like, nope, we're just playing for 6 hours tonight. I don't think it's as good as The Last of Us 1. I was very invested in the story, but I think they get in their own way way too much, whether it's by the game being over long or them throwing just way too much combat. And I think the combat is better than it was in the first game. There's just too damn much of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the first game, I came away feeling like I was very satisfied with that experience. It wasn't the ending that I was hoping for, but I was very satisfied. I came away from this game just being like, I fucking hate everybody. Which I think the game wants you to feel that way. We'll get into it, but
yeah,
it's a masterclass in so many like Naughty Dog they're wizards. They do things with that hardware that I don't see any other developer really doing. So that's all amazing. It's just it left a very bitter taste in my mouth, which I think was by design, but also not by design. Like it left a bitter taste in my mouth in multiple ways.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Justin. I mean, I echo a lot of what you're saying. I'll piggyback off what you're saying and saying that I think the game, and here's I think my major problem with the game, other than the things you stated, which I totally agree with. It's too long. I think the combat is better, and the combat is fun. I would say I think it's probably the best Naughty Dog combat has ever felt. I think, but because the game is so long, there is just by just the power of the transitive property, there's too much combat, and it ends up losing its sort of specialness as it goes along because you have to do it so many times. And some, especially like sometimes it just sends you from like long combat encounter to long combat encounter to long combat encounter, like right back to back to back to back to back to back. And it just gets too much. But, other than that stuff, I think the issue I have with the game from a narrative sense is that, like you were saying, Justin, I don't know what the game is trying to communicate to me about the world, about the characters, about how I'm gonna feel, how I'm supposed to feel about the events of the game. If it's supposed to make me feel like, oh, the whole world's terrible and everybody sucks, like, that's not a very interesting message to send me. But I also don't think that's what they were trying to say either. You know what I mean? Like, they were trying for, I think, this like being very vague cycle of violence, like, you have
violence perpetuates violence.
Yeah, and how do we kind of end that and handle that? But much like the rest of the game, it delivers that message in multiple instances over multiple different moments. Never really, I think, not confident, but maybe too confident in the fact that they could just keep hammering certain things home and it would be good. You know what I mean? And I think that's my biggest hang up with the game is as I've gotten farther away from it, I've had more problems with it, and I think that there are some games, like when we were doing the best of generation games, we were talking about Nier Automata, right? That's a game where when I was playing it up close, I had a bunch of problems with it. From farther away, when I just think about it and I'm not going into like deep about like where it should rank on this kind of list, I'm like, that was a great game. Like, it had some really amazing ideas, like, wow, so cool. With this game, like, up close on it, I was like, okay, like, I really like this game with some reservations. And as farther I get away from it, the more I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a good game, but it just falls short in a bunch of places for me. I think is how I feel about it. The things I will say good about it is that the way it looks, like Justin said, but the acting in it is just superb, like all around. There are such good performances top to bottom for every character. In ways that we probably last talked about when we talked about Uncharted 4, in this way that like it feels like you're seeing like the real performances on screen coming through in their facial expressions and their eyes, how charming or not charming there are, like there's just so much presence to the performances in the game that to me is almost worth the price of admission or whatever, because you don't get that in a lot of media in general for a cast to be this good across the board, so that was really great. Alejandro was saying that he always wonders if there's editors like they do in a movie, and to cut out unnecessary stuff. And I'm sure that like in the writing process there is that, and I'm sure in a point when they're making the game they are like, yeah, we can chop this section out or take this away. But I think in games a lot of times what happens is, and I can't say this for Naughty Dog because I don't know how they work, but a lot of times like levels and sequences are up on their feet before all the writing is done. And that's where a lot of the money and time is spent. So I think they're a lot less apt to cut big sections of games out because it costs so much to get them up on their feet. You know what I mean? And you don't really know until you're playing a 30-hour game how it's going to feel at hour 15. You know what I mean? And by then you've spent all your money. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I also think, I mean, this is where we're going to get into spoiler territory.
Which we absolutely can. I mean, that's my general feelings about the game. I said when they announced it, I was like, I didn't need a sequel, and it's going to have to do some very interesting things to justify why The Last of Us needed a sequel. And I don't feel like The Last of Us Part 2, even though it's a good game, justifies them making a sequel to The Last of Us. That's what I'll say.
I can agree with that because I felt the same way about Uncharted. Like, I was like, sweet, more Uncharted. I don't know if they need to do this.
Mhm.
And then when I played Uncharted 4, I was like, no, they needed
Yes.
to do this.
Mhm.
They like this game justifies its existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, like what you said, like I came away with this being like, I kind of wish they didn't make this.
Yeah.
So here, I'm gonna talk about one of my, I think my big issue with the game.
So let's talk
I
about
think
spoilers now. Spoiler tag. It's big spoiler
time.
tag. If you don't want to hear anything else, you should tune out. But we're going to talk spoilers, and we might dive into deep, heavy spoilers. Just this is the tag. Spoilers. Okay.
The pacing of this game is upside down and sideways.
Mm-hmm.
You play the first 15 hours as Ellie, 16, 17 hours as Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
And then right as the game is at its culmination, it's like, psych! Now you're playing the next 8 hours, 9 hours as Abby.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to like wait to get back to that resolution.
But what did you texted me when that happened, by the way, and we'll talk about that in a second, but go ahead. Keep going.
So I was going to say, like, you lose me. I don't care about prequels. I don't like knowing what's going to happen before it happens. And, there is a point, like you are going through as, I guess here we go. We're going to spoil everything.
Yeah.
So the game starts and Ellie and Joel are in Jackson. What is it? Jackson. And a group comes looking for Joel and kills him. And I didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it could happen, but I really thought it seemed like they were marketing it to be that Ellie's girlfriend was going to be the one that gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a nice sleight of hand there. And it's Joel, and you're going after his killers. And Ellie, in the process of losing her own humanity, goes and murders all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she does.
And then, right as she's having her confrontation as Abby, it's like, let's rewind 3 days and start all this all over again. And you're seeing all the characters that you're going to kill, and you're learning about, hey, these people weren't so bad now, were they? They also have a place like Jackson. They have a kindergarten. They have a taco, they have taco night.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's the real bad guy here? And it goes into that whole meta layer of psychology and whatnot, but it's like none of this mattered. Like, yeah, I grew to really actually like Abby, who's the person that offs Joel.
Yeah.
But I hated the way that they actually laid that out. I don't like I think it would have been more impactful for me to have played the parts with Abby first and then play as Ellie.
Yeah.
And then have it hit you in the stomach like, you don't want to kill like this. Yeah, this person was there, but they're not a bad person. Like they teach kindergarten. Oh, you just stabbed her in the heart.
Yeah.
So like the pacing felt all off to me.
Yeah. I think that for me, and I agree with you in a lot of ways, Justin. I think that I'll say this right now. When the game was over, I was like, I wish this whole game had been about Abby, is how I felt at the end of the game, to be totally honest with you. I ended up, by the end of that game, you have this big scene where you're Ellie, basically, you've chased down Abby, you're gonna kill her, and that whole scene, I'm just like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want to be doing this. Like, I think Abby is in the right. And this is what I meant before by saying, like, the game is trying to talk to you about cycles of violence, and it's basically saying someone has to stand up and say, no.
Enough.
And that happens. Abby doesn't kill Dina, doesn't kill Ellie because she sees Lev and goes, oh my, this is my humanity, like, built out into a person. That's basically Lev is. Lev becomes sort of like the Ellie from the first game, like in this game, to Abby. And Abby kind of goes from being sort of like Ellie to being Joel, really, I think by the end of the game in a lot of ways. But it's like, Abby ends it. She says, no, I'm not going to kill you. We're walking away. I don't want to see you again. I'm not going to kill you. And to me, like, the writers of the game were just like, okay, we did that. We showed this, that Abby can break the cycle of violence, but now we have to show it again as Ellie. And so Ellie basically does the same thing at the end of her arc as well, right? And by the time you're in that moment with Ellie, I'm like, I'm tired of Ellie's basically like thoughtless revenge quest. Like there's no moment when she like beats in like what's her name's head with the pipe. She seems like she's a little upset about it. And when she kills the pregnant lady, she seems like she has like a moment of like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. But like there's never really a conversation about like, what am I doing? Is this what Joel would have wanted me to do? Like, who am I becoming? There was none of that introspection from Ellie. There was no arc for Ellie in this game. Like, she just was like, she starts out as like, hey, I'm fucking angry and pissed off and I'm gonna get revenge. And basically up until the very end where she decides not to kill Abby, she's the same character, right? And Abby is so interesting because Abby changes. Abby has an arc. Abby goes from being this like, sort of like revenge bent, like militant, person to being this much more fully featured sort of person with like empathy in her heart and, willing to change and see the world in different ways than she was already seeing it. Right. And I really like that character for her a lot, but I totally agree with you, Justin. It's like when you texted me, you're like, I just got to the Switch. He's like, I don't like this. And he's like, I don't want to play this or I have no interest. And I was like, just trust me. Like, I understand what you're saying, but let me get to the end of Abby's story. You're going to feel a little bit differently.
I still like, even looking back at it, I still think it was dumb the way that they did that. Like,
yes,
I hate going backwards in time and being like, check out this perspective. Like, you already know what's going to happen. If they had, and Meg says people would have lost their minds if you had started the game as Abby. And I'm not saying you had to start as Abby, but they did a thing early on where it's like you're playing as Joel, then you're playing as Ellie, then you're playing as Abby.
Yeah.
Like they should have rolled it that way.
Yeah.
Where it's like you play as Abby, you play as Ellie, back and forth. And like there's a dueling narrative there instead of being like, here's Ellie's narrative. Now it halts to a stop. Let's travel back in time and pick up Abby until they get back on the same path. Like that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And like, yes, you could have imbued the same lessons, but I think it would have hit harder if you could see Abby and Ellie going and veering off on different paths at the same time instead of, man, when I was playing Abby for the 8th or 9th hour, I completely forgot about Ellie.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh yeah, that's right, her. Like I'm like, I'm invested in this now, but it would have been much more impactful if I could have seen them veering off in that direction at the same time.
Yeah, and I think what it does too is the structure makes you, for the first part of the game, you're not thinking about Abby, right? You see her for like that little bit, and then as far as Abby as a character, all you're thinking is, okay, we're gonna find Abby and kill her, but you have no like connection with Abby in any other way. And then the same thing happens with Ellie, in which you leave Ellie for so long, like you're saying, that like I'm not invested in Ellie's story anymore because I've been doing like Abby's story for 10 hours. I was listening to the Waypoint Spoilercast, and one of the things they said was what Patrick Klepek said, and it was, he's like, this game would have been much more interesting even if they had flipped it the other way around, which was that you play as Abby for the whole, you kill Joel, you play as Abby for the first 3 days, and you get that sequence with Tommy, like when you're the sniper sequence with Tommy, and then by the end of it, you realize it's Tommy, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, why is Tommy here? And then like you see the Ellie stuff, and like Ellie's been hunting you, but you don't know in secret, you know?
Yeah, that would have been way better.
A way better, more interesting twist on it. Obviously, not the game they made, and I'm not trying to like critique a game that doesn't exist. But one of but the next point, if you started the game not playing as Ellie, people would have lost their shit. People lost their shit anyway. The vile shit that came from people about this game is just so crazy to me. It's so crazy to me. It's insane to me. It's insane to me. They did do this in Metal Gear, but what they did in what he did in Metal Gear was you played basically would have been like the Jackson like section of this game as Snake, and then the whole rest of the game as a different character. Like it was like the whole game. It wasn't just like a switch in the middle. So it was a whole other like thing, and people did lose their shit about that. Meg's asked about the Waypoint podcast. Is it just 6 hours of them shitting on the game? I wouldn't call it shitting on the game. They definitely, two of them really don't like it, but it's an interesting listen. I would say, but that all depends on if you do okay listening to people talk badly about a game you like. Because like that's really the test for it. If you don't want to hear that, then I would say don't listen to it.
Here's some other quick thoughts I have.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, amazing actually, that in year 6 or 7 of the PS4 being out, whatever it is, 6, I think, somebody actually found a really interesting thing to do with the touchpad.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow, somebody was like, we should do something with this other than a map button, right? And it's like, oh wow. And what they did was like having it be the playing of the guitar and like strumming it to play the guitar. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Extremely heavy-handed at the end that you can't play the guitar anymore because you lost 2 fingers.
Yes.
But still, it's affecting.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of this game, it was like, okay, like the reason, like, yes, I'm a sap. I love happy endings. I want happiness, and I realize The Last of Us isn't about that. But like, Ellie loses everything at the end, and it's just like, there's no hope. There's nothing. And into the end of the first game, it was like, well, it wasn't the ending I wanted, but it's very ambiguous about like where it's going. Like, does she believe him? Does she not believe him about what happens? And here it's just like, I kind of want to never see Ellie again because I don't want it to get ruined anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'd much rather just then pick up with Abby and be like, oh, here's The Last of Us 3. And like, you play as Abby the whole time because Abby's the more interesting, at this point, is the more interesting character.
Yeah. I mean, what I think they should have done with this game is it didn't, and I understand why they did it. It didn't have to be, it could have been The Last of Us Part 2, but not been about the same characters that the first game was about. You know what I mean? Like, it could have just been like, here's another story in the Last of Us universe. It's about this person. You know what I mean? But instead, like, the other thing that's disappointing about the game to me is that the whole game is about the one choice at the end of Last of Us 1. That's what the whole game is about. You know what I mean? It's about that choice that Joel made. That's what the whole game is about. And there's also an element of the game that's about like, and they say it like so like, they say it. I think Lev or Yara says it, and it's just crazy. The subtext is just thrown out in a line like this to go like, you know, the sins of the child are. I hope the sins of the child aren't. The sins of the parents aren't put on aren't put on the children or whatever like that. You know, or whatever. And it's like, that's like one of the things the game is about. Like, you know, is about dealing with like what happens to your parents or like your forerunners, what happens to them sort of like is thrown upon you, you know, with Abby's father getting killed, it thrusts her into this life. You know, what happens to what Joel decides to do forces Ellie into this life for her. You know what I mean? But the game has that theme, and then has a theme of the cycles of violence, but then it also like just wants to have like video game ass shit in it, which is fine, but the game takes itself so seriously that when it's like, hey, yeah, we have this third faction called the Scars, and like, I don't know, they're just bad guys. Like, you can only be a good guy in the Scars if you leave the Scars, essentially. You know, if you're running away from them because they're trying to kill you, you're a good guy. But anybody in the Scars is just is a bad guy. You know, and they'll try to kill their own children. You know, like that's like what it is. And it's just for the game speaking to you for so long about being like, you know, like, yeah, you love Ellie and you think Abby's a monster, but like she's not really a monster because you got to know her and she has friends and just people trying to survive. With the Scars, they have no interest in doing that, right? And then of course it's even brought to another level with the Rattlers at the end of the game, which is just like, okay, we have another faction you're just throwing in at the end of the game. Like just to be enemies in Santa Barbara or whatever, which is nothing about the bloat of the game. There's just too much of the game, you know? That's the general sin of the game. I think it's just, there's just too much of it. And I wish there was less. And Meg says, no one's talking about how Abby's dad was about to kill a small child without her consent. I mean, if we can debate the end of The Last of Us for a very long time. And the choice that was made by Joel. And yes, it was like, he did what you could consider, some people consider a terrible thing, right? He killed all of these doctors, he killed all these people, and he maybe stopped the chance for the world to survive. But you're absolutely right, Megs. It's not like the Fireflies gave Ellie a choice either, right? They were like, no, sorry, we can't wake her up. We gotta open up her brain right now. Like that's basically what their decision was, you know. And so that choice is taken away from Ellie all over the place. And I think like you can look at it from many ways. I can tell you that if my son was on the operating table, like the only way we can save the world is if we cut out his brain and kill him right now. I would not accept that as a choice. You know what I mean? Like I just wouldn't. I wouldn't accept that as the choice that had to be made. So I think that there's layers to it, and that's it. Being complicated is what's good about it, right? That's good. Being complicated is good when it comes to storytelling. It's the idea that, and I think like, I think this was Waypoint. It might have been Giant Bomb. I think it was Waypoint. It talks about basically Abby and Ellie having like road rage anger. You know what I mean? Like they this hot, fierce anger about a wrong that was done to them. But they don't really have like a, why can't I see my mod view stuff on that message?
Yeah, I can't either. Mark, can you take care of that?
Usually I have like the thing.
Yeah, it's not working for me either at the moment. There we go.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why it wasn't there. But this game seems to want to blunt force some of those things. And it's a shame. I wish things weren't as drawn out, because I think like that sequence where you're with Lev and you're Abby and you're going up to like the Sky Bridge, you know, and then you're going to the hospital and all that kind of stuff, except for the boss fight in the hospital, which is just
crazy.
It doesn't belong in this game. It just doesn't belong in this game. You know, it's like a really good set of level design and mission design. And even the hospital is so interesting to me, because the hospital is like a Resident Evil level. You know, it's not, there's so much like, first you have to open doors by doing like certain things or whatever, but there's also like the hospital is telling you a story about the world. You know what I mean? Much like that boat was kind of telling you a story about the world that you go onto. And there's not a lot of other places in the game that do that, but it comes after playing the game for so long that I'm just tired of it by then. No matter how good it is, I'm just tired of it by the time I get to that moment. And I just wish I hadn't felt that way when I was doing it, you know?
I mean, they're excellent at making you think about those things. Like their world building is second to none. I read every note I came across because it was like, this is interesting. Like I like seeing what's going on with this. You know, what happened here? Where did this person go? Oh, I found their note 5 blocks from here. This is what happened to them. That sucks. So yeah, like it's a complicated game to talk about. You know, I enjoyed my time with it. You know, I don't know where they go from here. I like the first one better.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I liked Abby better than I liked Ellie. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm sure that the rumor is that we'll get some sort of standalone DLC, much in the way of like we got, what was it?
Left Behind.
Left Behind. So I'd be interested to see what happens with that. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with the game. I just don't want to think about it any more than I have to at this point.
Yeah. I liked the game, like same as you, but I think that especially when you're coming off a game that so many people think of as one of the best of the last set of boxes, like it's a very tough act to follow. It's a very, very tough act to follow, and I just don't think that they did it, and part of that is it's not fresh, right? It's not new. It's not surprising. It is the series that we've already seen, and we kind of know the tone and we know how it's going to play out. And it being beautiful and the acting being good is just not surprising to us anymore, right? It's just what it is. And so yeah, it's disappointing in the fact, as a follow up to The Last of Us, the first Last of Us. But it is still a good video game. It's just when you're talking about the relational status of it, I think it's a little bit of disappointment. But yeah, that's what we think about The Last of Us Part 2. And I want to say congratulations to Mark. he made affiliate today.
Attaboy.
That's awesome. Good for you, man. Start getting them subs, getting them biddies, making it happen, my friend. Making it happen. Like a shout out to Ursus Fidelis in the chat. Go check him out. Follow him if you haven't yet. He is in here every night, being a great mod, engaging with chat. Just awesome. So make sure you check out his streams as well. Yeah, you got Megs, incoming biddies from Megs, the first chance she gets, I bet. So get ready for those.
I want to say something actually,
yeah.
because if you're listening to this podcast, you'll notice that the last couple of podcasts we've done have probably been different than any of the, I don't know, hundreds of ones that Bobby and I have done before, because apparently we've become Twitch streamers.
Yeah.
What we started as podcasters, and now we're streaming on Twitch 4 nights a week, if not more than that. And so we now do the podcast live on Twitch, and like we're interacting with chat. So I know for a fact that more people listen to this podcast than interact with us from this community on Twitch. So if you'd like to be part of the action, come say hello.
Yes.
You know, we stream every night at 9 p.m. Eastern over at twitch.tv/monthly reset.
Yeah.
And we do the podcast live, and as you can see, like we like interacting with our community on Twitch while we do it. So please come be a part of it.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure you follow us on, different social medias at Monthly Reset. It's on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two that we really focus on. Instagram, we've been doing daily news breaks, talking about big news of the day, game news of the day, posting clips there from our Twitch stream, stuff like that we really like, so check that out. If you're watching here on Twitch, you can see all the information below us, but anchor.fm/monthly-reset is where you can find the podcast, and also just all of your podcasting services. You can just type Monthly Reset into whatever podcasting service you might use, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, whatever it might be, and you can get that. So check that out and subscribe to the podcast so you can get it. Megs enjoys our news vids. Thank you so much, Megs. Really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're trying to figure stuff out. We know that most people know us and sort of follow us for this sort of stuff. For talking about news and talking about games, and we want to keep that going and have the Instagram be a place that people can come and get information and get entertainment as well. And hopefully it will lead you guys to, coming over and watching some of the streams like Justin said. But we really appreciate the support. It's been awesome, and thank you so much. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby Shortle, Justin
at Parkley76.
And yeah, follow the show, subscribe to the show, follow us on Twitch if you're so generous. If you have a Twitch Prime sub, throw it in there to us on Twitch, twitch.tv/monthly reset. But until then, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you to all of you who've been watching and listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.